Well, good afternoon, everyone. As you all know, we are spending a good amount of our time and energy here in the Senate on nominations these days. And we've seen an unprecedented level of obstruction and delay and blocking from Democrats. And as a consequence of that, we've had to kind of grind through, and that's what we're going to keep doing. If you look at just the historical precedent with regard to noms, we have never seen in history anything like what the Democrats are now doing. As of this date, back in 2021, Joe Biden had gotten 46 nominees confirmed either by voice vote or unanimous consent. Donald Trump has zero, not a single one confirmed by voice or unanimous consent. And further, the Democrats are making it hard even on bipartisan nominees that sometimes will get 60 votes plus on the floor, one even up to 83 votes on the floor. So even the bipartisan noms are being blocked and delayed, so much so that the Democrats have been forcing me, when I file cloture just to get a nominee considered on the floor, to go in and out of executive and legislative session. So these are just dilatory tactics designed to block and obstruct the president and his agenda. And the sad reality is that there are a lot of these people who fill important positions in our government who need to be able to be confirmed to get there so they can do their jobs. And that's the way of the American people. That's what they voted for. They voted for this president, and he has not had an opportunity to get the people that he wants to have man his administration get there to do their job. So this has got to stop, and clearly the Democrats are starting something and creating a precedent that is going to come back to haunt them. This is really bad. This is a bad practice on their part, because as you all know, what goes around comes around here. And I think, regrettably for the Democrats, they're going to rue the day if they keep this practice up. So I am hoping that they will work with us, come to their senses in the next few days here to try and put together a package of nominees. There are a whole bunch of bipartisan nominees that are out there that are available for consideration right now. But this simply is, again, I've said it before, but it is. It's Trump derangement syndrome on steroids with the Senate Democrats. There are Senate Democrats who actually do want to work on getting some noms through the process, but their leadership is blocking that. And unfortunately, here in the Senate, at least on the Democrat side of the aisle, it is the tail wagging the dog. It is the far left of their caucus that is preventing even good government people who are bipartisan, from getting confirmed. So that's got to change, and if it doesn't, we're going to be here a while. So with that, we'll try and answer questions.
We know what Russ Vought had said about a less bipartisan appropriations process. Will you ultimately be looking to the president himself about what he wants in government funding, and do you think he would be willing to, give the Democrats some breaks, to give them some opportunity to get on to whatever form of a spending bill take shape in September?
I think it's in everybody's interest to avoid a government shutdown at the end of September, which, as you all know, is when our fiscal year ends. And obviously, in order for that to happen, it's going to take some cooperation from Democrats. So I think the president is prepared to negotiate. He's proven that in the past. And obviously, we have bills on the floor right now, or a bill on the floor, which are trying to convert into bills to make it a package of bills to consider to keep the appropriations process moving forward. And obviously, we are all very concerned on our side of the aisle in finding ways to make our country more fiscally sustainable and to find savings within the appropriations process and the other areas of government funding that fall under the mandatory side of the budget. But we very much want to see restraint in spending so that we can start dealing with the debt and the deficits. And I think the best way, at least right now, to do that is to have a normal appropriations process. And a number of my colleagues are on that committee and have been working aggressively to try and get bills ready for consideration on the floor. And I just hope now that we can get a path forward to do that. If at the end of the fiscal year the Democrats use any other suggestion made by anybody in the administration as a cover for not doing appropriations bills, or worse yet, as a cover for trying to shut the government down, that is an argument that's not going to be sustainable. And so if we end up with a Schumer shutdown at the end of the year, the Democrats are going to own that. In the meantime, we're going to do everything we can to try and move the appropriations process forward, which is why we called up and put on the floor the Milcon VA appropriations bill last week.
How are you going to handle a CR at the end of September? Will you do what you did in March, basically take a House-passed package, bring it to the floor, or would you enter a four corners negotiation ahead of time?
Well, to be determined. I think a lot of that depends on how cooperative the Democrats are in trying to get the appropriations process moving forward. Obviously, I would say all options are on the table when it comes to funding the government. But what I can tell you is we are going to look for ways to keep the government funded and open and operating. And what we hear, at least rhetorically, coming out of the Democrats right now is they have a very different view of the world. And they're already talking openly about a shutdown. And I think the politics on their side of the aisle right now is such that, as I said, the far left, the wing of their party in the Senate, is calling the shots. And I don't think that's in anybody's best interest. So I'm not taking any options off the table, but what I will tell you today is that as we look at this week and then the subsequent weeks coming in September, I intend to use those weeks to try and get appropriation bills done so that when we get to that year-end conversation, we're prepared to have hopefully a substantive conversation about what the best way is to fund the government.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a situation now where the president says the images coming out of Gaza are bad. He's thinking about opening food centers there. You have a Republican, Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling it a genocide. You have American support for Benjamin Netanyahu slipping. What do you say?
Well, I think that I share the president's view. I think that the humanitarian thing, obviously, when you see people hurting and in need like that, is to want to help meet that need and alleviate that pain. And so I think our government and I think other governments around the world, other nations, are very interested in doing what they can to make sure that people who, through no fault of their own, are being harmed by what's happening there. But you got to understand, too, that when you've got a terrorist group like Hamas operating in that region, they're going to intercept and divert a lot of that food aid that's going in there. And I think that's the challenge that the Israelis have, that's the challenge that we have, and other nations around the world who are trying to step in and help. But I think all of us want to see, obviously, a peaceful solution there that gets the hostages freed and ends the reign and rule of Hamas in the region. But in the meantime, do everything we can to ease the pain and the hunger that's afflicting so many of the people in that region of the world.
And what does Congress have to play?
Another issue you spoke about this morning was agriculture, the safety net provision in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We still don't have a 5-year farm bill. Given everything else going on here, calendar this fall, what do you see as the prospects of finishing the job? I'm talking about food security. You're working against, many of you have said, national security. And we still don't have that.
Yeah, well, and it is every bit of that. Food security is a national security issue. Certainly other countries around the world view it that way. And yes, I would love to get the elements of the Farm Bill that didn't get done in the One Big Beautiful Bill dealt with in a normal way through the regular bipartisan 60-vote threshold way of doing things around here. But that said, we did do a ton of Farm Bill policy in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Everything from the safety net programs, the agricultural risk coverage program, price loss coverage program, those were addressed, reference prices were raised, risk management was addressed through crop insurance, a lot of conservation policy in there, a lot of disaster policy with regard to livestock in particular. So there were a number of things done in the One Big Beautiful Bill that address what has been a problem, and that is that we haven't been able to get a bipartisan farm bill across the finish line in the last couple of years. Are there other things that need to be done? Yes. But I think we made good headway there, and we'll look for opportunities to finish the job. But remember, it's hard to find time to do things on the floor when you're spending all your time on nominations, which is where we are right now. And the Democrats, they can change that if they want to, but it's very hard to do substantive legislation at a time when we're dealing with personnel 24/7, which is the situation we find ourselves in right now. And as I said, that's going to change. And if it doesn't change, we're going to grind it out here, and Democrats are going to be here whether they like it or not.
Thanks.